Let's move on, please. Okay. Sylvia, are we together hearing us? Dr. Shepherd, are you hearing us at all? Okay, so we'll put something else. So let's move ahead. Okay. Okay, so thank you for your great patience. Yes. And if there's any other person, Dr. Shepherd is ready to talk to us from here. I think I got 5 minutes to talk about the humanitarians. Yes, I have heard. Give us an opportunity to catch up. So we have two things to do now. We can stop now, or we are asking them to allow us to go to 8. That's where we put. We've got 1 hour to tidy up. Those who haven't had a word to say to us, this is the time to do it. I'm going to call, Gus will be talking to the veterans. I'm going to ask Nze to come to us. Yes, Nze. We have Nze. You want something to say to us about the war? Oh, okay. Yes, why not? Veteran. Why not? I'm a veteran. Yes. Yes. Happy Obi? 5 minutes. Happy Obi? Yes, when they called me, they said, "Oh, are you a veteran?" Yes, maybe I look too young to be a veteran. Yes. If you could remember quite vividly, when the Prof was speaking, there was mental war and there was physical war. Some of us that we are born baby in the war, grew up within the war, and and the great servant, which says, my people. So that activated a lot of people in Biafra. Then you had the Jewish community who reflected what happened to them, and they decided that they're not going to stand idly by their neighbors being killed. So they collected money and they handed it over to the Christians to distribute at will. That's remarkable for a Jewish community. Then you had someone from Israel, Abi Nathan, who sold his restaurant business and his other business and decided to go to New York, use the money and to make an advertisement on the newspaper. He spent about 5,000 or so of newspaper advertisement and raised 20,000 he gave for Biafra with the medicine. So, and then each country, Canada, they were so enraged at what was happening, they were lobbying to stop the jail that we know of during the war. So there are so many stories we can tell you about what happened to March, children in schools, in hospitals, people actually went to the supermarket and helped to pack some change. The students, watching the children who were starving to death, and I couldn't eat my food. Here is $20. Make sure you send. So this story could be here all day. So I'm now going to introduce him, and then he will talk to us about prepared for this occasion. So suffice it to say that his father was the general that took over from Ojukwu and signed the surrender document. He complimented and praised the joint church aid, because they didn't come out, and the joint church aid, the purchased planes, and that plane was named the Jesus Christ Airline. And they were supplying food in, they were being shot at and so on. So his father thanked them when they were surrendering to Nigeria back again. So it's now pertinent that in our talk today, Professor F. Young Jr. will address us about what he calls sacrificial giving. Thank you very much. Philip, are you there, Prof? Can you hear me? You can unmute yourself and address us, please. Okay. Professor Young, you're there. Can you unmute yourself, sir? Okay, there you go. The Prof has been, we had a long fight today with the technicalities. I'm very, very sorry about the mismatch. We're going to get a refund back, I think, but that's another story altogether. Fine. So please address us, Prof. You're blessed and you're welcome for being with us today. Thank you very much.
I can speak to you either using a PowerPoint or I don't use the PowerPoint. It depends on what, actually let me use the PowerPoint
So you have to co-share, and then
I can you can give me permission to show my screen.
share screen. Making you're going to make host, and then you can say. You're free to do that, and then you're going to do share, yeah?
I find this grateful for desperate time, and it's kind of a play on words that explain shortly. And the subtitle is Witness to Sacrificial Gift. Biafra, a lot of times the awareness what I consider a very, very present and important issue. And I'm glad that we are getting to this point where as we address this narrative, we begin to look at it from various perspectives. So thank you for Biafra Education Awareness Day / dissemination. Dr. Okachilus, who I've spoken to, and others who I may not have spoken to just yet.
Recording in progress.
Very focus on philanthropy. We are unappreciated counter to widespread political and ministry coups. We talk about organizations like African Union, United Nations, leaders who come forth. And then in the process, we Nigerian, I will briefly about the genocidal attacks against people we probably addressed in detail, which are the philanthropy, mean almost in human life. So my title is Commitment 17:9, and let me make it clear that I'm using unacceptably example because that's what I'm familiar with. I am not in any way disregarding that we come from different regions. So I think I'm appreciated by anyone regardless of their background. Again, so the desperate and New Living Translation says that human heart is deceitful of all things. Desperate things we get, who really knows how bad it is? I want you to need because of the mile of the representative. Come to that place. That the dog is our best friend. Isn't that interesting? We don't say it's our neighbor. We don't even say it's our family now. human being as if we are conscious of practicing deep-seated in human beings that can be very. The good thing, however, is that in Christianity, just like other religions, there's always a counter to Christians. So it's not all bad. And in Christianity, it's manifested in the mission of the have that counter, something countering evil, which for me is very encouraging and reassuring. So others, material, it can be desperate. It can be desperate. As a matter of fact, charity is etymologically linked to Christianity, and Christian law, the word charity. If we go back to Old English. Now, we still regarding religion. We can think of the role of missionaries in freeing slaves, what I call slaves taking through their life. Like Mother Teresa, a Christian, Catholic, being life to serve the religious culture. I don't care whether people were practicing or whatever brand of Christianity they may have. It is not to say that we don't have non-faith organizations that all Nigerian work. A lot of the many. I have to say, however, which is sad. Of course, I'm not saying all of that have to work. For instance, the bombing of that was desperately. And it was intensifying the supply of arms to them. The federal side to facilitate a quick end to the war. But what I mean, the violence and viciousness that was unleashed on our people. Do it, destroy their lives. quickly so that the war can end quickly. And then we think of some of the desperately wicked things that happen. The abandoned property, burial, 20 pounds, insulting. No effort that we're doing in infrastructure. We haven't educated the people that were physically and mentally named, and we can go on and on and on with the causes that came after the war. So my question is, was this done out of love for us to ensure that we remain part of one united Nigeria? Because that's the argument. We need act of careless to be done of the attention. And those are rhetorical questions. You can answer them however you want to. Now, before after the war, a few million people died. But thousands more thankfully were saved because even though the desperately wicked justify war, we didn't have the resources. Now I witnessed starving children. Well, I remember the first time I was starving children. This was only why I was why I remember one thing with my brothers, and we saw some children. So when we saw those children, we had a couple. Meaning the dogs who were now to planting the house and the kitchen. I have witnessed other instances of starvation when we eventually lived in a place called Biafra. At the time we were homeless. I think this may come as a surprise. My father's father who had been a successful businessman. And we stayed in this place called Biafra. It was a village, but it was one of those places where the war had been done, the enemy had not overrun the place. So as long as the people had access to their water, and land, they actually were you had people devastated by the war or whose areas have been overrun by the enemy, and they ran away into places like Mpakala, and that created they didn't have land in Mpakala, they didn't have homes. And so Kanu was, and this is the I saw this child, and that the image of that child was in me. And the reason why I put the image of this child here is because it's exactly what the child looked like. You know, his hair was thinning, it was turning red, his legs was very, very thin. His stomach was massive. And when I saw him, because I was a child myself, I was frightened. And one of the ladies, the attendants at the camp, came up to the child and asked him, "It's your village." I think she pronounced male because the child pronounced male. So it's your village. The child said, "Hey, that's your village." And I was staring, and she looked at the child, and as he started to drink the milk, I became so frightened because he saw and I didn't understand how the stomach could still have it. Anyway, the long story short of this, I expressed horror and shock. We actually got the people in the house. Many times, we had a lot of activity with the mother, women and children. We got so used to it, who were staying in Pakistan. And then the smell, the sickness, we had to go and the staff members would come. They always stood out for me. The sickness was okay. This image is going to be old on me. But it's probably not going to be we should find out who are here at this session because the areas that we are also the people from the area, apart from humanitarian relief, those areas help to keep people alive. Because like I said, places like and stuff, and other places like that, all that the access land, and their waterways, they could keep this stuff, do nothing else. But anyway, so not all people at the work of these humanitarians, their tasks with very, very dangerous. And I see that in your program, you actually represent someone whose book I have here, the current, and it's only the practice from my relief, from Biafra. You know, sometimes you would help to provide services like a safe distribution of to our people. We also constantly attack. Sorry, before I continue, I think as a goal, there's a message here. I need to have one and someone else thank you. I don't know how to humanitarians catch up the area that will destroy everything. You are aware of an international record being and memorialized is beyond even after the volunteers that survived, the refugees that survived, they're now taken to a new place where new camps are set up. So it's an entirely effort. And when we talk about service, when we talk about Christian service, sacred service, humanitarian service, this is the ultimate. And we thank God for desperately kind, which counters what I mentioned earlier with Nnamdi. Like I said, I witnessed the impact locally, also witnessed the impact globally. To be to the end of the world, we probably are aware of the frantic efforts to get on cargo planes and leave Biafra. Fortunately, my mother, myself, my younger brother, my older brother, and a cousin were put on one of those planes, and one of the places we ended up was Ivory. And I remember we were now sent to school with Biafra refugees that had been sitting there months earlier. And looking back, we just have to be grateful for the efforts that were made by the parents to save the children. I think of the they were very active in football, and compare that with the earlier image I showed of the Ifakala refugee child. Because a lot of them someone like David Curran, who I mentioned, who's program of his book here is here on this slide. For the Biafra, is still I'm so happy that this foreign refugees remain thankful and grateful for like David Curran, but there were of course many others school because throughout the world we really have not gone to school. The world was especially interested they are trying to an educational experience, and of course it was limited the number of young friends that they could help that with. But in Ireland, I think that a number, a little more, another meeting, a number of other young Biafrans that have been able to continue their education. In 2010, I attended a conference on Biafra, on Syrian workers. Many of them were ended up the end of the contract movie, which is still gave me a copy that I still have, and that video, that documentary did a lot in provoking and stirring the Irish people to provide philanthropic support to Biafra. So there were doing so many things, flying planes, bringing in relief, making the documentaries, and in the process dying as well. Now, why would go on? I think it would get out of the best. You want to do things. If you're doing desperately detective and so on, desperately kind of, you will not like that because they're now becoming a problem. They're presenting the evil that you want to do, and the audacity of this humanity really upset Gowan. I don't think Gowan was necessary mission, but the thing about evil is the more you immerse yourself into it, the more you get comfortable. And there's a lot of murderers, for instance. There's a murderers, but after they murdered 3 times, and they really have so Gowan first of all came to power on the blood of people, and then what this kind of violence in the name of unity, I think that really became bloodthirsty. That's my belief. And so he hated the craft of those who tried to do something about what he was doing. We see his reaction it's their fault that they're trying to do. This kind of statement contributed there, and public rights, you can think about if you look at destitute people. Women and girls for this domestic the Nigerian state has moved in a way like this. In trouble of course, I want to acknowledge you like that actually things. But on some levels, the state is their business. But it's not a priority, and so we shouldn't be surprised that for someone like, if it's not a priority said, why would it be a priority of war that actually normalizes and legalizes violence? Moving forward, you've probably heard of the reports by scholars who praise Gohan and his humanitarian and compassionate handling of the end of the war and of the Biafra surrender. This is pathetic, coming from scholars, because I'm a scholar myself. You know, these scholars are really elite scholars who never experienced Biafra, who lost no one during the war. You know, they're communities and people who are communities, you know, those who were alive at the time, and they also make stay here from the room or formal office. They rarely make any effort to venture. They're going to form a Biafra and carry out their research. They won't do that. Rather stay in the comfort of this conclusion and administration. That was like a one administration. Later to hand that to the status quo. You know, the desire to disseminate balanced information is from 1966 until the end of the war. It's possible, and I can create a marriage, and I'm not even respectful. So the notion that you're married to someone that didn't someone into that you love the larger racial or the racial or ethnic community nonsense. At the height of apartheid in South Africa, you know, white men create the bodies of black and brown women, but they still embrace the apartheid system. They still racist. So that argument, you know, I feel it's so I'll tell you that the environment memorialize and all of our skills that you many guys, but many more could have died without this. And what I've done in this section is to go ahead and mention some of them. You know, some of them are the unknown men and women who run the refugee camps. Including some of the more like Father Umana has been calling them. I know Father Umana because he was my parents' friend. The secondary school I went to, family college. So these unknown men and women who ran these refugee camps, including the camps in places abroad, like Gabon and the Ivory Coast, we need to celebrate them. We need to honor them. We need to honor the people of Portugal, Gabon, Tanzania, Sao Tome, the Ivory Coast, Zambia, Ireland, France, Italy, and parts of the US like Michigan, who also came before us. Emmanuel Morris was mentioned here for a number of reasons. First of all, he provided me the first place I lived in when I came to the US. He was only a teenager, an unarmed man. Well, at the time he was played the risky role of helping to distribute relief supplies across Biafra. Emmanuel Morris is still alive and living in Atlanta. I especially mention him here because he's an Chinedu, for those who want to make this only about those people. And then there are people like the Swedish pilot, Carl Rossen, who flew dangerous relief missions for humanitarian organizations. There's another individual, Martin West. This information was provided, I think, by his son to me, who also risked his life performing public relations roles and helping to organize the efforts to Biafra. There's also Ron Archer, an American pilot who made Biafra. I'm mentioning as many as I can. I know that I won't mention all. I've already mentioned David Curran. There's also British medical students, Jonathan Ambache, who died. The Holy sisters that they were responsible for curing a cough that my brother and I have throughout I remember that hospital and its philanthropic and humanitarian services. And like I say here, there are many I haven't mentioned, both groups and individuals. We must seek them out, celebrate them, and show them the gratitude and honor that they truly deserve. And finally, but not least, I am indebted to God, who is referred to in many names, depending on our different spiritual beliefs, the higher power, the Almighty, for the precious gifts of life, protection against evil and creativity. I believe it's His love that has created, and the love of this that has created that I talked about here. So on that note, I want to end with a big, much gratitude and thank you. This is not enough. I think this is a good starting point. Let me just state here that I just want to do this on my own to mention someone who I recognize here. I can't see everybody, but Dr. Ewa Onoke, who has remained very humble about his role during the war. This was a boy, it was only a boy when he witnessed the killing of his people, and he couldn't just not do anything. And he took up arms and defended us. The defense of people like this adds to the humanitarian work that I'm talking about, because we can't undermine, we can't be indifferent, we can't just marginalize the protection to life and property that people like this did. Most likely didn't have to do it, but she did, like many others. And there are others who may be a part of this program who I can't see and who I'm not mentioning. I want to let you know that I and the rest of us remain eternally grateful. Thank you so much for your time.
I know you're all tired. We can do better than that. Oh, thank you. Always good to wait to hear from you. And I'm sorry about today's technical challenges, but we got here in the end. All it does mean is that just open the avenue for more discussion and humanitarian. That's what we can finish talking about. I'm glad you mentioned it later. When I first said it, asking somebody, four human set themselves alive, the fire guards, security guards, to fire hose to stand down it. He does so. Because he was carrying a placard saying, save Biafran, save 9 million Biafran. It's just phenomenal. And it wasn't his fight. He doesn't know who we are. He just got fed up talking to the president. Everybody can talk about Biafra. They ignored him. He killed himself. So if you're tired, remember people like that. I'm really grateful because I said we can carry on talking about this. And I moved that maybe next year we'll focus more on this humanitarian. There's a lot of facts. You know what they say in our language, if someone kills the chicken for you and you thank them, maybe next time they bring a goat. Yes? So we need to be grateful and show that we're really thankful of those who have to, because you never know, next time we attract more helpers. But thank you. And once again, apologies for the technical challenges we had. It was worth waiting for. Thank you, everybody, once again. Right, so that's it, really. All we have to do now is to thank everybody. Now, there's somebody I need to thank, especially DJ Man. He made a lot of effort today to come and sing for us and entertain as part of the parcel, just to remember we're all humans. Yeah, so we lift our spirit. Rest for it. We got the children all fired up, and people haven't. But we haven't forgotten the sacrifice we made. There will be more occasions. I don't know where everybody was today. The triple strike didn't help, but we're really grateful. And of course, in our midst still, most people have gone by now, but they don't do well. I don't know. And we just have to listen to him. And it's not, so he told us how much those books are going to cost. So we better make sure you've got your copy and signed it before he goes. And you want to say something? Media? Okay, so let's round up. If you have a song to play for us, that one is people were singing.
Mazi, are you there?
Yep.
I think we are winding up here. We'll be rounding up. It has really been a long day for us here. Biafrans in United Kingdom. It's really been a long day. We are winding up now for the day. Send my greetings to all Biafrans around the world. Thank you for being with us for this program. And we promise next year we are going to have a better one.
Recording in progress.
Thank you. I still remain Obimboma reporting from London here, Goldsmith University, London, United Kingdom. There we
Yeah, thank you very much, and we enjoyed the program. And from here, we'll end the program until next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We are still on until we get Biafra. There we All right.
This is where we'll be disengaging. This is where we'll be ending the program. It's been a long day. I started this 7 o'clock. It never came on as scheduled, so I kept hanging around, and and that's it. That's the way it ended. And Biafrans, is just for you to. I know the interruption, the carrier connection wasn't all that good, but we had to do with what we have, a network issue, so that's what it is. So I thank all of you that listened, and whatever it is will always prevail. This is the spirit of Biafrans. We are always prevailing, and getting Biafra will not be an exception. Thanks to all of you that showed up, and all those that listened. These are the things they did to us. And, tomorrow, now waiting they happen. Tomorrow, now waiting they happen. I've forgotten about that. And then Ndimo will be here. Yeah, tomorrow now waiting they happen. Tomorrow now waiting they happen. I've forgotten about that. And then Ndimo will be here.
Before you, proud to be a servant of such a heroic people. Today I stand before you to proclaim that our heroic youth in the various fronts have turned the tide of this war. They have smashed all enemy offensives directed at our destruction. In the air, they have destroyed systematically the sinews of Nigeria's military might. The Biafran Air Force, small as it is, has stopped the entire oil flow of Nigeria from the mainland world. All protestations to the contrary by the British Broadcasting Corporation and Harold Wilson are mere wishful thinking. Our gallant boys are men tempered of steel. They have wrested the initiative from the Gawan enemy, and the Nigerian hordes are in trepidation and on the point of rout. The confusion of the enemy in the battlefields is only matched by the confusion in his home. Fight on, brave boys, fight on, heroes of our fatherland. Pursue the enemy, harass him, destroy the invader. March on, brave boys, now that victory is in sight. March on and hasten the disintegration of the enemy already set in motion. March on.
Anything you hear on radio Biafra is the gospel truth.
I had a voice right in the air, sounding like a thunder, calling for my freedom. Yeah, now I conquer. I had a voice right.
Good evening, great Biafrans, wonderful people and beautiful people. I welcome you this evening once again. This is Radio Biafra. It is Hello Motherland. And of course, today is a Friday like none other, because each and every time we come out to do this job, each and every time we come out to proclaim that Biafra is the kingdom of God on this planet they call Earth, it lightens up our mood. We are so happy because it is a privilege. It is an opportunity, a privilege which some of us may not have. But we are so privileged, it is not funny that we are seen worthy to be among this greatest family in the whole wide world. And I'm talking about the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, Okwabonono. If you make a discussion and IPOB is not mentioned, then of course you are not in tune with reality. IPOB is a word, or should I say an acronym, that has been mentioned more than 1,000 times in a week or even in a day, because everywhere you go it is IPOB, ESN and Mazi, Nnamdi, Kanu. And once you have spoken these three words, then you have spoken noble, because everybody wants to know. This is what they ask you if you belong in this noble family. And what can I say? May Elohim bless our leader, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, the man who have called all of us out, the man who made the call. And we heard the voice on the radio, Radio Biafra, That voice is the voice of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. That voice called us and we concurred with what he was preaching and we answered the call. It's more like an altar call. Like those who goes to Pentecostal church, you will bear me witness. When the man of God has preached his gospel and he called for an altar call, people will give their life to Christ. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu preached the gospel on Radio Biafra. My goodness me. After preaching the word, he made an altar call. We concurred with the word that he preached. We listened, we believe, and we answered the altar call. And you were Biafra. My goodness me. We answered the altar call, and that is why each and every one of us is here today and are members of the indigenous people of Biafra, the greatest mass freedom fighting movement in this, or rather on this planet Earth, or this planet they call Earth. There is none other in comparison with IPOB, but none. We are mass. We are a monster. My goodness me. And this is why I take delight. Initially, when we came out, they used to laugh at us. People used to make fun of you because you're an IPOB member. When you wear your IPOB regalia, they will reduce you to a laughing stock. But this day, today, IPOB is a fashion. When you walk past a street, people will ask you, because IPOB is a brand. They are doing whatever possible to bring us down, or to disunite us, or to dislodge us, or to dislocate us. My goodness me. It is not today that the infiltrators has been doing their worst. But we are still standing because this great mass movement was founded on the truth that is Elohim. And that is why we say that we are whiter than white and whiter than snow. If you are a pretender, if you are here for ulterior motive, my goodness me, the oath that you took will find you. And when that oath locates you, you are a goner. And this is why I'm so happy this evening to welcome you to yet another great edition of Constructive Argument with Mazi Ikechukwu-Onoha, JP, on Radio Biafra. Radio Biafra, the best. Radio Biafra, the first. Radio Biafra, the last. Radio Biafra, Banon. They tried to hijack Radio Biafra, but they've forgotten that Radio Biafra was Aroshi. How do you hijack Aroshi and Ebu Arishi Ebu and Ebu Alebu? They tried. And they discovered that Radio Biafra Bobuni Igwe Biafra Anagi Ebu Ebu Gibru Yawano Ibu Anye Dandaya Nibuogi. It's as simple as that. Therefore, permit me to welcome you once again this evening. It is indeed going to be a powerful one. My goodness me. The man that I have today on the horse seat, the man that I'm going to allow him to introduce himself when we might have prayed. I will allow him to do so because his names and titles is so much that if I start to introduce him, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu nona adimaka onye obula waraka ya megini oronya kamo. And this evening I will allow the good doctor to introduce himself. Waraka ya oronya kamo. He is a man that knows his history. If you are lost in terms of your history, if you are lost and you want to know, or rather you want to found yourself, today is the day. This evening is the evening. He is indeed a man of great knowledge in IPOB and trust me when I tell you. And that is why I have been playing this old school. My goodness me. For those who has been around, for those who know what's up, All right, so let's leave it there. My goodness me. All right, our time is fast spent and we need to get into it because I don't want to keep the good doctor waiting. And before we do that, before I invite my guest this evening, permit me to welcome you once again. If you are only joining us right now, my goodness me, this Radio Biafra, and I tell you, for those who are new on this platform, for those who are joining us only today, and they are wondering what is happening and what is the occasion, take a listen. This is why we are here. This is constructive argument on Radio Biafra with Mazi Onoha. Bring your argument, and we've got the solution. Constructive argument. We hit below the belt. Radio Biafra. We've got you covered. Trust me when I tell you we've got you covered. It is Radio Biafra. We are everywhere. I said we are everywhere. We cover every nooks and corner in Biafra land. We saturate the whole of Biafra land. This is what we do, and this is how we do it. And in case if you don't have your IPOB community radio app, you've not downloaded it, where have you been? People are going past you. Make haste, go to your app store and download IPOB community radio. My goodness me, because we are the first and the last. Get it online on your mobile. This is IPOB Community Radio, Radio Biafra, the first and the last. That's right. Radio Biafra is the first and the last. Forget about all this rubbish, all this junk. Enter this, enter that, enter Gota. Where then they come out. They never see the better thing. Biafra, something that has been there time immemorial. And Radio Biafra, Waroshi Biafra, Radio Biafra, Obuniwe. My goodness me. All right, without wasting time, once again, my name is Mazi Onoha. They call me Ononebu Ekuru Biafra. Some call me Professor of Law, Professor of Investigation and Forensic on Radio Biafra. My goodness me. They call me all this name because I preach the good news. I preach the restoration of the kingdom of Chukwu Kikabiama on this planet they call Earth. That kingdom is Biafra. We must continue because we are unstoppable. It doesn't matter what they do. At the end, we always win. They say that United Nations will never pronounce a matter pertaining to Biafra. What is happening? At the end, we always win. When Mazi Nnamdi Kanu went to the USA, to the World Igbo Congress a couple of years back, he was mocked. They laughed at him. He told them what he needed. At the end, World Igbo Congress called him and said, Anyekwela Olehi Choro. At the end, we always win. We told them we want Biafra, and they said Nigeria is indivisible. But trust me when I tell you, at the end, we must win. They are going to divide Nigeria. Not even one part. They are going to divide Nigeria into pieces like the old USSR. Do you know why? Because at the end, we always win. And this we pray in the name of Chukwu Kikabiama. Ise. This is modern. All right, it is Motherland, and of course, it is constructive argument here on Radio Biafra. My name is once again Mazi. Today is the 29th day of July, 2022, the year of our Lord, the year that Chukwu Kikabiama have made. The time standing here at 13 minutes past 7 p.m. in the evening. Am I happy or am I excited or what? I am happy. I am excited. What is the occasion? Because I am talking Biafra. It is not everybody that have the opportunity, the privilege to talk to Biafra. I consider myself the most privileged of them all. I consider myself very, very opportune for me to be sitting here on this platform they call Radio Biafra, talking to millions of Biafrans all around the world, those in diaspora, those in motherland Biafra. It is a privilege, one that I cherish, one that I will continue to cherish for the rest of my life. I will serve my people to the best of my knowledge, to the best of my ability. You might not agree with me in everything, but there is something we have in common. We all want Biafra. At least that settles it all. All right, without wasting time, we must proceed. We must continue, and I need to call up my guest this evening. It is constructive argument. Trust me, we hit below the belt. All right. Good evening, sir, and welcome to this great show. It is Radio Biafra, and this is Constructive Arguments. Welcome, sir.
Good evening.
All right, sir, without wasting time, we are going to proceed. But before we do so, please help me introduce yourself. The explanation is too much. The profile is very intimidating. So when I can get Boronya Kamo, Biafrans are listening. Go ahead.
Mazi, hi. I know I don't know where to begin.
It's up to you.
It's like when they're giving all these big names, you look around and see if they're talking about you.
Thank you very much.
I greet you all, fellow Biafrans and lovers of freedom. Before I open my mouth, I would say, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer.
Sir?
My name is Justice Onyemuchechukwu Akujobi Ukachilois. I'm a medical doctor, trained and specialized in trauma and orthopedics. I survived the Biafran War as a child. I was privileged to come to the UK in 1970 after the war. I'm also an ordained bishop. I was a former UK coordinator, IPOB. I'm currently involved in the medical corps and also the Biafra education, awareness, dissemination, where we try to use the knowledge which is literally scattered throughout the world about Biafra, by putting them into a thread, a bead. They turn them into pearls of wisdom, which enable us to restore Biafra, because knowledge is power. I'm also part of the Council of Leaders and the Education Department of Igbo community. So without further ado, I've come to share with you what little knowledge I have, and we're still gaining more about what this Biafra is about. And when I heard about Nnamdi Kanu, I realized we found somebody who is genuine, who wants Biafra to be restored, who understands what's at stake, and I give him my wholehearted support. What he brought to the table was tremendous courage. And you know, courage is contagious. And through his courage, we can all therefore develop our individual courage. And you know what the Lord said to Joshua? Do not fear, be courageous, for I am with you. So our prayer is that our Heavenly Father will be with Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, because he's sacrificed a lot and is committed to the freedom, not only of his people, but also of his enemies. So I'm here to do what I can to share knowledge about Biafra, because experientially, as a child, I remember being bombed, I remember being shelled, I remember lining up the refugee camp, and so on. So I have a first-hand experience, but I've also managed to try to understand what the whole thing was about so that I can share the knowledge with other people. So, Mazi Ike,
Yes.
I don't know where to, if you want me to add any more.
All right. Mazi, I think you have done justice to that, I must tell you. Now, the stage is set. The whole world is listening. Talk to me about Biafra. I have my pen, I have my paper ready, and I'm ready to learn. Let's go.
Okay. Biafra basically is the last resort. Because what the Juku said, if you cross this line, you are safe. So Biafra is about security, about safety. If someone said they're going to look after you, and they fail to look after you, by an agreement, the government is supposed to look after its citizens, protecting their lives and their properties. In 1966, Nigeria as a country failed people of the eastern region. Now, it didn't matter whether they were Igbo, Ibibio, Efe, Ndoki, Ejo, Ogoja, Ogoni. It mattered not. Once you're from eastern region, you were not safe in Nigeria. So they returned and rushed back to the part they thought was their own country, their own villages, their own farms. And they thought they were safe. Lo and behold, the people who are chasing them from the north, from the west, came back and attacked them in their own land and tried, with the help of superpowers, to wipe them out from the face of this earth. Nobody has gone through that suffering will forget it. It doesn't matter how long it takes. Biafra will be restored because Nigeria crossed the line. The world wanted Biafrans to return back to Nigeria. Biafrans said, what about our security? Because we are better at looking after ourselves than anyone else. The UN said, no, it's territorial integrity. Britain said, the Igbos have to protect it in the context of Nigerian unity. But it failed to guarantee that unity. And 50 years plus later, we're still being killed. As I speak to you, we're still being killed. You're not safe. Some are languishing in prison. Some are having their organs harvested. Women are being raped. Their farms are not safe. So where do we begin? So for the sake of our people, because if you're not informed, I'm told you'll be deformed. We need to go back to the basics and try to understand how Biafra came about and why it's indestructible. Okay, so I don't know if you want me to begin from the beginning, as it were. How did we find ourselves in Nigeria? and how do we get out? And that is really what I've come to talk to you about. May I proceed?
Please go ahead.
Thank you. Right. We find ourselves in Nigeria because Britain devised a country and called it Nigeria. Basically, they invaded people on the coast, conquered them, and beheaded some of their leaders who resisted this conquest and held on to the territory. So that Calabar was the regional capital from the eastern region. And then they moved on to Lagos, bombarded it, and seized Lagos. So they had the south, and they called it protectorate. They then went up to the north and met the northern army that were actually forcing themselves down to conquer the whole of the territory. And because the British had Gatling guns are machine guns. So they were able to resist and defeat the Emir-led northern forces. Now, let me just step there. So when they defeated the north, they have a vast territory which they could not have enough manpower to control without recruiting those who actually ruling the country. So we're talking around 1914. So what they did was to try and make sure that this vast territory they've conquered is administered. They decided to join the south and the north, and they called it an amalgamation. Okay. This amalgamation, 1914, had some precedent. They said, what we have to do is that after 100 years, the people who have been amalgamated can decide whether they're going to carry on living together or go their separate ways. So we have a north-south join for economic convenience. So you can run a vast territory whilst you didn't have the money in your treasury to do so. So it was a skillful administration from the British. They deliberately joined those who are incompatible, meaning that when they conquered the South, the missionaries moved in and they were able to learn the European way and what they call modernity, how you run trains, telephones, post offices, and so on. But in the north, because of the arrangement when they conquered the north, the northerners said they do not want modernity. They want Islamic way of running things. Therefore, they resisted missionaries advancing into the core north. Okay. So as a result, there was an imbalance because in the south, you had approximately something like 841 secondary schools, whilst in the north, they managed to have about 40. Now, so as a result, people coming out for the first time from schools and colleges, predominantly most of them were from the south. So they had to go and do the British work, what they call the civil servant works, the modernity I was talking about earlier on, run the trains, transport, post office, and so on. You have to be able to read and write to be able to do that. Now, I'm not saying for 1 minute that the northerners couldn't read or write. It's just that the situation precluded a vast majority of them from going to school. They're Africans like you and I. Given the opportunity, they have the same talent and brain, but there was an imposition on them in that they were not allowed other than Islamic way of doing things. So that created some gaps between North and South. Now, before I go further in that line, let me tell you how the British conquered the North. The Northerners had the invasion through Islamic Jihad from the people of Fulani origin, who were the Emir. They conquered the indigenous tribes, which are the Hausas. Okay? So Fulani is the name, is the name that the Hausa gave this tribe that came to conquer them. They're not Fulani. Fulani is a Hausa name. Okay? So the issue was that the Fulanis, they came with the religion of Islam. They Islamized the whole of northern Nigeria. Of course, there was resistance in the northeast, the current Borneo area. They were fighting each other. The vast majority of the northern area was conquered by the Islamic Jihad, which was led by Usman Dan Fodio. Now, he appointed emirs to various cities of the Hausa land. So when the British came to fight them, you had indigenous tribes, the Hausas, who were not happy with being suppressed by the emirs. So they actually didn't fight as hard as they ought to have. So they helped to defeat the emirs. They helped to defeat the Fulani. And therefore, the conquest for the British was made easier because, if you like, the Hausas were conquered, and then the British conquered the Fulani through the help of the Hausas. Now, to cut the long story not so short, the British haven't now conquered this vast area, and the Fulani, knowing that they acquired this land by conquest, they respected the British who have now conquered them. Okay? So now it's like they paid respect to the British, and the British respected them for that. So that is why they were different from those in the South who fought like the Ekumeku, who made sure they didn't give the British a chance. So the British therefore favored them. And to favor them, they decided, rather than ruling them direct, they agreed for them to run this vast area. They wanted them now to rule what they have already been conquered. Let me explain that. There's a very, very strange situation where you conquer somebody. It's like you chase somebody out of your house, and then you ask them to come back into the same house and manage it for you. Okay? Some people will understand this. It's like the British became the landlord, and they gave the key to the Fulani who they conquered to now run the whole area on behalf of the British against the indigenous population. Of course, I've been talking about Hausas. There were other tribes that made up the vast north. But the British found the Fulani very amicable and willing, having conquered them. And therefore, they handed over the key of the whole northern area to the Fulani. The Fulani said, fine, what we're going to do is that you allow us to rule this vast area on your behalf. The British says, fine. And they said, but we don't want Christianity. We want to keep our Muslim, our Islamic way of life. The British says, fine. So what that meant is that having conquered this area, the Fulani were able to tell them how they want to live in that area. Okay, so that is the background why you have North-South divide in approach to modernity. And I hope that's explained. So, if the Muslim choose to go to school, it will be for Islamic schools. Okay? It will be, and they will send their brightest, if you like, their immediate relatives of the emirs to learn as much as possible. But the general public, they kept them learning the Islamic school and nothing Western or modern. So the British had a problem. How do we administer these vast areas? I know, let's get people from the south to go up to the north to help develop the north. Okay, so that was the background. So our people, at the peak of the disturbance around 1956, it was estimated that between 1.8 to 2 million people from the eastern region, and of course the Muslims, also from the Yoruba land, went up to the north to help to develop the north. Now, if you came from outside and you're not Muslim, and your ways are not their way, and you got your church, you got your schools, and you're running things. So the natives will look down on you and say, hang on, you have come from outside, and now you're telling us what to do. So you know where we're heading with this. There'll be inbuilt resentment. Because when you arrive in the north, you ask them to give you water because it's very thirsty. So Nyemimi, yeah? And from Nyemimi, which the northerners had all the time, you have Nyamiri. So everybody from the south is called Nyamiri. Okay, now we haven't separated that knowledge. It's just something I've thrown in to help you understand that there's a difference between the people in the north and people from the south. So they were not allowed to mingle with the people who live in the north. In other words, they had their walled cities. Yeah? So you can't just go inside and live with them because their ways are not your ways. So you lived outside the walled cities in places called strangers' quarters. And that is called Sabongari. So in the Sabongari, you had your own schools, you had your own transport, everything different from the local. Now the locals then look at you as what the sociologists call privileged pariah. They don't like you, you're pariah, but you are privileged because you're earning salary, you're working in the bank, you have cars, you have television, radio, and you're running shops. So inevitably there'll be built up resentment you have and we don't have. Okay? So, and of course, that is part and parcel of the basis of why we have differences in the northerners and the southerners. Although it was one country amalgamated, but they were being ruled, or the administration was different. Okay, if you can't get a job if you're from the south in the way the natives ran their administration, the Southern Native administration. They were run by those who was appointed by the emir. The emir would dictate who is in which post. If you're from the south, it's unlikely that you get this post. So you have a country called Nigeria, but dichotomized. You're separated in the way you run your system. You have identified two different people. Okay, so as a result of that polarization, everything that was done to restore Nigeria, or the people of Nigeria, they're independent. Now, we're not talking independence, because we're now going to go and make Nigeria an independent country. the way the British treated the North is different from the way they treated the South. But the South are pushing for independence. So the British wanted to make sure that their interest in the North is protected. That they cited virtually every industry, the development, schools, everything in the North, to the neglect, particularly of the East. Yeah? So the East, or if you like, those in the Eastern region, they managed to build whatever they did due to their enterprise. But the country, the British were citing all the developmental structures in the North. It's a vast area. Now, as a result of all this goings on, when it came to we want our independence, the North said we are not ready. For example, Nnamdi in 1953 said the British says if any of you, there are three regions then, Eastern, Western, and Northern. Midwest has not come out then. They were advocating for independence. They were being ruled as regions. Britain said if 2 out of 3 of these regions want their independence, okay, we will give it to them. Okay, so now remember, the person who's pushing for independence is Nnamdi Azikiwe, Awolowo. So Awolowo said they are ready. Zig said yes, the people in the East, we are also ready. But we have to wait for the Northerners because they're not ready. So that was a big misunderstanding, a big mistake. Because if they said yes, you can have your independence, you have had an independent region, West and East, and the North will do when they're ready. So the West and the East, if you like, were ready to become independent countries. But there was some sort of friction. They weren't working together. So the Britain then went in and made sure they were further apart, poles apart, so that they cannot combine forces to challenge the vast region of the northern Nigeria. So that is the background for future, if you like, inbuilt failure systems. It's like failure engineering. So let me bring you to what happened before independence. In 1945, okay, before they started the killing, 1945, what happened was the World War II was ongoing. This World War II, the British were in Nigeria. They built Kanu Airport, where they used to move up to the north to attack Hitler in the Egyptian deserts and so on. So the Kanu Airport was built purely for the World War II. Now, as a result of that development, when it became apparent that the Nigerians are working flat out to fuel what they call the war effort, they weren't getting any increase in their pay, and their standard of living was dropping drastically. Okay? So they decided, therefore, they're going to strike. So can you imagine Nigeria having a general strike, which involved North and South? In 1945, June 22nd, they had a general strike. This general strike was led by the people from the South, and the newspaper used was West African Pilot and the Daily Comet, both edited by Nnamdi Azikiwe, who was the editor of both. So they thought the actual strike was engineered by the Igbos. Okay, the British were not very pleased at all because the war was going on and you're going a strike. And all the commodities and goods that were coming to Britain will have some difficulty. So imagine Nigerians, they were united and saying, we're not going to carry on being exploited because just like now, the cost of living has increased 200%. The workers' wage since 1941 has not changed. However, the Europeans who are working in Nigeria labor market have been paid a couple of allowances to cope with the skyrocketing costs. Okay? But the Africans were not being paid. So they took a strike action. And that virtually paralyzed Nigerian economic life. This went on for 44 days. Can you imagine? Whole Nigeria striking 44 days. So this scared the British, scared the living life out of them, because they said, how can these people possibly organize a labor force to strike in our, colony? This is not heard of. So that scared the living daylight out of them. But the interesting thing is that the people in the north were not joining in this strike. And this strike was a stepping stone for political, liberation consciousness. They wanted to shut down everything that British was doing. And the newspaper leading it was Western Pilot, Daily Comet, as I said earlier. So what happened was as a result of that, this strike, there was a killing of the Igbos. Yeah? Well, how did this happen? Well, the Northerners weren't enjoying in the strike. So, as a result of that, there was propaganda directed against the Igbos, and they said they're responsible for instigating the strike. So, there was a clash between the Northerners and the Easterners, because this happened in Jos. They were doing tin mining, for example. So, as a result of it, there was a major clash for the first time between the Northerners and those from the visitors from the South. So Igbos were massacred. Now, the British being in charge didn't rush in to stop the massacring, just used it to teach the Igbos a lesson. Okay? So the killing went on for several days. Properties were burnt and so on, and people were killed. Now, as a result, guess what happened to the newspapers, the Western Pilot and the Daily Comet? So they accused Nnamdi Azikiwe for instigating the strike. So they prescribed, yes, you heard me right, they prescribed the West African Pilot and the Daily Comet. And they said they won't allow these papers to be published anymore because they're causing trouble for the British government. So that's where the prescription started. Okay. Now, what happened was, because you had the North and the South, a bit of confusion for the British, they were delighted that the Northerners didn't join. So they started favoring the Northerners because they know these people in the South are troublemakers. Why are they troublemakers? Because some of them went to America and they wanted their country back. They wanted independence. Some went to Britain, of course. So they were exposed, and they started thinking about independence and all the humiliation they've been having. They wanted to be free. Britain wasn't going to have this. So the North said, we are not ready for independence. In fact, for us to be involved, we rather secede. They're the ones who decided to secede. And then in order to placate them, they had to be given about 53 or so of the voting rights in the legislation to allow them to be in the government. Independence hasn't come. You're giving them a veto, in effect, allowing them to run the country because they have majority in the House handed over to them, not by campaign, built into your new system, so that if there's any election and they have 53 seats already, well, they don't need to campaign. They don't need to come down to the South to campaign. Yeah? So, as a result, they have an inbuilt majority, which means they, the Northerners, will run Nigeria in perpetuity. They don't need to campaign for it. So the Britain has favored them, biased the Federation, which is supposed to be a tripod, the East, West, and the North. Now, you didn't balance it, so you had preponderance of votes coming from the North. the issue was there wasn't enough people in the north to justify that. They just give them the votes. So that was the beginning of the ending for Nigeria, because you cannot have a country where one part will rule forever and ever and do what they like. Okay, so that is the background to the first massacre of the Igbos in Jos, 1945. Then, as the campaign to become independent heated up, a delegation in 1953 came down to Lagos to discuss how we can become independent. Because, what's his name? I've forgotten his name now. He's the one who moved the motion that Nigeria should become independent at the soon practicable date. Is the information minister. What's his name now? I've forgotten. Bear with me. It will come to me. So this information minister said, he stood in the house and said Nigeria must become independent. This was 1953, and hopefully in the next few years, as soon as possible. The northern delegation said, no, we're not ready. We're not interested. So the people in Lagos were going, boo, cheering them and saying, how dare you oppose our independence? We want to be independent. So they went home and they got very, very upset that they were looked down on and booed and so on. So, to make the matter worse, Akintola with the Action Group decided they're going to visit them, pay them a visit in Kanu to make them realize that we need independence. So someone called WADA, W-A-D-A, WADA, he organized the Northerners in Kanu to set up, if you like, a counter riot for those people from the south. He said, we came to the south and insulted us. They're not coming to the north to insult us again. We're going to do something about it. So he rounded up his Northerners, gave them free, on the days these people were supposed to come, there wasn't going to be any work. So he gave them days off. On the Saturday they were arriving. And then, to make the matter worse, the rumor had it that they were waiting for them. So they decided, Akintola decided not to show up for his campaign. But the Northerners have already organized anti-demonstration to do some visit from the Southerners. But despite the fact that Akintola, the Action Group, did not show up in China, they still went ahead and killed Igbos again with such ferocity, that it took, 3 or 4 days to quell. And the butchery and the barbarity was such that the British government had to step in and do an inquiry and say, why was such viciousness? So the Igbos have been killed in 1945, been killed in 1953. And now it's beginning to make sense to you if you know who you are. This place, knowing where the rain started beating you. So you've been killed in 1945, been killed in 1953. So guess what happened in 1966? This is where Biafra is coming in. So that bubble of resentment, animosity, guarding yourself remained until the independence in 1960. Okay, so in the independence 1960, it was suggested that the election was rigged. In fact, before they finished the counting, the British administrator decided to say the winner is no proper accounting. It's about what the Abubakar Tafa Balewa has won, the northern people. So that causes some stress and discomfort. So in order to join the government, you either have to go up to the north from the east, or the west had to join the north. So the east got there first because Ahmadu Bello and Zik were friends. Awolowo tried to join in, but they didn't succeed. And the east and the west didn't join hands either. This handshake across the Niger didn't occur. They would have formed a formidable opposition or ruled Nigeria in a way that would be fair for everybody. Nonetheless, the Northerners got the power from the British and they became the Prime Minister. The Nnamdi Azikiwe who did all the hard work, and according to Kwame Nkrumah, Ghana said, how can a nationalist who has done all the work just stand by and have a ceremonial president post? So again, that was an insight which did alluded, they didn't quite take seriously enough. So Zeke wanted peace at all means. He wanted Nigeria to be free. So he settled for president, which is an honorary post. But to the outside world, they think he's the president of Nigeria. But Nigeria did not have a presidential system. It was standing more as the governor general on behalf of the Queen, because Nigeria was in a federation of prime minister. That's where the power is. So the Northerners got the power under Tafawa Balewa. So we had an independent Nigerian state, and then the bubble of resentment began. It was first in the Middle Belt, the TIV, T-I-V, the name, but they call it TV. So they started agitating. They wanted to break away. The West, there was a lot of argy-bargy going on. The West predominantly wanted to get to the seat of power because the action group were if like the opposition led by Awolowo. Because the people on the East, NCNC predominantly, have joined ranks with the Northern People's Progress, the Congress. So the West felt excluded from the center of power. So they now try to get back into the center of power. So Akintola had a disagreement with Awolowo. Akintola is the deputy of Awolowo. He had a disagreement with Awolowo and tried to get his Yoruba people into the government. As for them, it's better for them to be government than to be outside. So as a result of the shenanigans, the Middle Belt, the teams were fighting, the Yoruba own started out. And it led to what they call Operation Wetier, where it's not safe. You have to be action group or not an action group, depending which faction you are.
Excuse me, Mazi. Sorry to interrupt. Can you please elaborate on that Operation Wetier? Not everybody understands that slogan. Please go ahead.
Okay, Wetier is just basically wet him or wet her. You're pouring an acid, you're wetting them with acid. Yeah? So if they didn't belong to their party, they poured acid on you. And cars were burned. Majority of people, there was a lot of chaos in the West. So they actually called it the Wild West. There's a lot of instability in the West. Most people went to Dahomey, which was what is called now Benin Republic. That's where majority of Yoruba people went there to hide because of the ongoing chaos. Yeah? So now all the rioting and all the burning and came to a head when Awolowo was imprisoned and accused of treason. Okay? So Akintola then took over and people didn't trust him. So there was infighting in Yoruba, they were killing each other. Now, as a result of all that, there was a lot of tension in the country. And to make the matter worse, the first election after independence, I believe 64, 65, when it happened, it was blatantly obvious that the thing was rigged. In the meantime, the alliance between the eastern part of Nigeria and the northern part has fallen apart. The Okara brothers have decided that the northerners can't be trusted because they did a census. The census, they counted that the northerners have inflated the number of people living in the north compared to the number of people living in the south. And indeed, if you use satellite imagery, I'm sure they didn't have it then, you find the densest population are mostly in the south than in the north. And if you look at the whole West Africa region, there are more people living near the coast than near the desert. So how is it that Nigeria has more population in the north? Anyway, that's another story. But there's mistrust as a result of the First Republic. So the election to find out who will carry on ruling was so bad that they wanted to dissolve the whole Nigeria. Nnamdi Azikiwe was the president and was asked to, well, since this thing is not safe, the election will rig everything and he's going to dissolve the whole Nigeria. But as a result of compromise, they managed to forge, if you like, they managed to forge some form of government. The Tafa Balewa then carried on. All this thing was going on, the military were getting irritated. The TV was going rioting, military goes in and squashes them. The Midwest as well, killing. The military has to go in and kill some people to keep them quiet. So as a result of all the instability, and of course the politicians, being the politicians, were so flamboyant in spending money, all sorts of things. So it appears that the military, what I call the young hotheads, the majors and the captains, they planned to bring Nigeria back to sanity because they thought Nigeria is not pulling its weight. Nigeria should be doing more for black people than they are doing now. So there was a coup. So this coup led to the killing, asymmetric, I would say, asymmetric killing. In other words, there are more people killed outside the eastern region than other regions. The Akintola in the west was killed. In the north, they killed the president, the prime minister, Abubakar Tafawa Balewa. They also killed the northern premier, who is the Sandiwana of Sokoto, okay, and various other prominent people, and some of the military people who are from the north. Now, the issue was, when we looked at it, if Azikiwe wasn't killed, Opara wasn't killed, and I think someone called us Adebe, who is the Midwest, wasn't killed, they say, hang on, what is going on here? And I remember as a young man, riding in a bike, my grandfather, they stopped over to discuss this in the village. And they said it appears that other people were killed and Easterners weren't killed. They didn't think the Northerners would agree with us. And so that just the conversation you never forget. So as a result then of that killing, the issue was that the killing in the West here, Operation West here has come to a halt. The rioting in the North, the Mid-Belt has come to a halt. And surprise, surprise, everybody in Nigeria was celebrating. The military have come in to teach these politicians some sense. Okay? They thought the person who led the coup in the North was from Midwest, Nnamdi. And the person who led it in the North, in the West, in Lagos, was Ifajina. And they were supposed to have killed the people in the East, but they failed to do so. And Mid-Belt, Midwest, and they failed to do so. So now, but the people who stopped the coup are senior officers like Agi Iwensu, who happened to be the person in charge of the military overall. And also in the north, Ojukwu, who was commanding a battalion, I believe in Kanu, was also instrumental in preventing the spread of the coup and the effects. Because Nzegu was going to march down south with his military to take on the south because he accused them of messing up big time. Now, the country, when the military took over, the people who took over from the military weren't the ones who did the coup. So that was a mistake because they didn't know anything about the coup, but they found themselves as one ruling country now because then they were in a way hesitant to carrying out the plans of the coup plotters. The coup plotters were supposed to bring, what's his name, Awolowo out of prison because they thought he was unfairly imprisoned. So they wanted to bring him out to act as part of the interim people who are running the country between the military and the politicians. So what I'm trying to say to you is that there was a lot of people in Nigeria as in general welcomed the coup as initial outset. And I've got evidence here in newspapers which were written to show that this coup was generally accepted. So for example, it says that according to the evidence, let me read it for you. According to the evidence, the January army takeover was hailed throughout the whole federation. The disturbance in the western region and the Tiv areas of the north, which marked the last days of the First Republic, came to an immediate halt. As I said to you, those areas that was agitating and rioting, the military coup seized to stop them. So there was a marked sense of relief throughout the whole country. The mood of the country was amply portrayed by the national press. If you look at the newspaper cutting in January 1966, it says, Daily Times, a local newspaper, says, accused the politicians for the way things have gone wrong with the country, and they praised the new regime for a manner in which he had effected the changeover without causing much public panic. So the military stepped in and calmed, the senior military officer came and calmed the disturbances. The West African pilot, by now, of course, the proscription has been lifted, they now got independence. The West African pilot said that January 16th, that is the day after the coup, will go down in history as a great day for Nigeria, because it was the day that took a new lease of life. The Morning Post, again, part of the official federal government organ, newspaper, said, after causing the politicians in Nigeria, after accusing themselves of thinking they had a divine right to lord it over ordinary people, declared, we of this newspaper join millions of fellow countrymen in welcoming the dawn of this era of our country. Now, the new Nigerian newspaper, which is mostly in the north, also said regionalism and tribalism have been the major factors that have precipitated the present crisis. If we have learned that much, then some good may come out of what has happened. Okay, so those are the Nigerian newspapers. Now, where did it all fall apart? BBC stepped in. The only discordant note, the only newspaper that said something in the opposite direction said BBC in London. Within 48 hours of the army takeover, the BBC correspondent dubbed the whole thing, called the whole episode an Igbo coup. Let me repeat that. Within 48 hours of the coup, it was the BBC correspondent that called the whole thing an Igbo coup. So the BBC was to stick to this note to the end. That is where the problem.
So Mazi, obviously, it is not today that BBC has been inciting violence and genocide against Biafrans. Please go ahead.
There you go. So that is very, very important to note. Because if the BBC hadn't mentioned it was a coup, it would have biased the minds of the people who were celebrating that now the Tiv riots have stopped, West here has gone, Nigeria is now going to move as one country. Okay? All right. So it's worth noting that one. Now, so you had a coup in 66 in January. Military have taken over. They're now plotting and planning how to run the whole country. So there were 4 regions: Northern region, Western region, Midwest, and Eastern region. So the current head of state, who was a military senior officer, Agi Irensi, happened to be Igbo. He appointed military governors to rule those 4 regions. Now, he wanted a unified command so that when he gives an instruction, the military will follow it. And he wanted to dismantle the region and centralize power at the center. This was the beginning of the end. So Because he wanted to do that, he brought out what they call Decree 34. Decree 34 was designed to unite and unify the civil servants, everything about Nigerian government. But the oil in the ointment, the fly in the ointment was that the Northerners seriously suspected that this is an Igbo takeover. Okay? They thought if this was allowed to go ahead, the Igbos would dominate everything. Okay. Remember, in the North, you can't get a job in the government unless you're approved by the Northerners. You remain in the Sabongari, if you like, a privileged pariah. So they were scared that with this new decree, the civil service would be standardized, and people from the North would be overswamped by people from the South who, quote, appears to be more educated. So that scared the wits out of them. Remember, the politicians have been asked to go away from ruling. So they had more time now to plan or how to counteract any threat they thought was from Igbos. Okay, now, today, of course, is the 29th of July. Okay? Very, very significant. So what happened was, when this Decree 34 came out by the new government, before I mentioned that, the people who did the coup, by the way, the Zogos, the Paginers, and all these people, they were rounded up and locked away in prison, awaiting trial. Yakubu Gowon and Salem, who is the police commissioner, was set out to go and investigate who caused the coup, why they had the coup, whether it's an Igbo coup, and so on. Up till tomorrow, Gowon has not found any evidence to show it was an Igbo coup. Okay? So they were told to go and find out who caused the coup. All the information showed it was junior officers from various tribes, not just the Igbo tribe. Okay? Now, the Igbo officers may have been predominant, but they're not coupping. They didn't do the coup for the sake of the Igbos. There was no need. The Igbo civilians were consulted. And of course, the newborn baby and the baby in the womb, no one asked them to go and do coup on their behalf. But they all became victims of what they call the counter coup for the 29th of July. Okay.
All right, Mazi, unfortunately, here we are going to end the part one. Remember, this is a series, and we are continuing again, depending on your availability, next week for part two. Because of our time, and of course, a member of DOS are coming up on other platform, and have actually taken over almost 10, 11 minutes of their time. So please, I don't know if you will make a commitment to be France that you are definitely coming back again next week.
By God's grace.
Amen.
Do your best.
Thank you so much. I am enjoying this. I wished we can just go on, but unfortunately because of time. But please don't worry, Biafrans. Next week, by the grace of God, we are coming back. We need to know our history. This is juicy. This is important. If you don't know your history, of course, you won't know where you are going. Once again, Mazi, Dr. Justice Lois, Okachi Lois, thank you very much. May Elohim bless you. And I will speak to you again next week.
Thank you. Let me just say one thing.
By all means, please.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We have the Biafra Education Awareness Dissemination Seminar on the 20th of August this year. So we're busy preparing where we share information about Biafran genocide and those who helped us with the humanitarian response to Biafran genocide. So please join us and we'll all learn together about the events that unfolded. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mazindewo. Thank you for your time. All right, this is where we will leave it because of time. I was beginning to enjoy this, I must tell you, but unfortunately we have to leave it here. But trust me when I tell you, we are bringing him back again next week. If there is anything we need to know, it is our history as a people. We have to know who we are, that history that they have hidden away from us as a people. Time has come for us to know exactly what happened, by who, when, how, and where. These are the questions our children are asking, and they deserve an answer, and that answer we must give them. Please, I've dedicated the part of this coming month of August for this history. It is definitely going to be a history month here on Radio Biafra, and of course on this platform, and of course on Constructive Argument. Dr. Okachi Lewis, but if God's sparing us, we'll be back again next week to continue where he stopped. This is part 1, and we're going to load it, of course, on our community radio app so that it can be going on every time, so you can be listening, hearing about your history, meditating about it, and of course, he is coming back. Don't miss it. Spread the news. Tell the people it is happening live here on Radio Biafra. My name's Mazi. This has been Constructive Argument. May God bless Biafra. May God bless our leader Nnamdi Kanu. May God bless the land of the rising sun. From me, from here, it is goodbye.
What I'm going to share with you is the ongoing history of how Biafra came about. And it's not something we rush through, because history has been denied in the school, and therefore people grew up not knowing what actually happened. I'm not going to say, everything that I speak to you, I was there. No, nobody can possibly be there. But we are so blessed and so privileged to have the Eastern Nigerian government at the time. They took their time to record what happened to our people. So, what did they do? They went about to establish a tribunal. This tribunal is to allow those who survived the pogrom to come and give eyewitness accounts of what they went through. They were cross-examined. They were under oath in front of the High Court judge, the Chief Justice. This new case commission was targeted at getting at the bottom of the truth of what happened to our people. So it's a worthy read. I wish one day in every Biafran school we will have this commission report called the Massacre of Nnamdi in 1966. Is anybody who can read and can understand must read it, so there'll be no ambiguity as to what happened to our people. Briefly then, the tribunal was set up by the Eastern Region government to ask those who survived the pogrom. Remember that those who died, nobody could give account of them. Those people who actually survived, who extricated themselves out of the north or northern Nigeria, were asked to come and give witness. It took 49 days. There were 253 witnesses. There was an exhibition of 498 exhibits. They went from town to town, from Enugu to Onitsha, to Aba, to Port Harcourt, to Calabar, to Uyo and Ogoja, gathering this information and therefore recording it, not just for you and I to read, but for history and also for posterity. So the issue at the moment in Nigeria is that those who perpetrated this crime don't even want to say they have done it, let alone apologize for it. there are still ongoing killing of our people. If we do not know where this thing started, how are we then going to defend ourselves? So there's a saying that if we don't know where the rain started beating us, we're not going to learn to defend ourselves from the rain. So this is the reason behind knowing the source of the history and the eyewitness accounts, which I'm going to share with you today. Because of the time constraint, I'm going to therefore limit it and structure it in such a way that hopefully most of you will understand it. There are under headings of motives. Why did this happen? The motives for massacre. The next one is the methodology. How did they go about? And of course, the crime itself, the madness, the murder. It's like a crime scene. What motives they have? How did they go about it? And the actual crime. So motive, method, and the madness, I call it. The third bit is to look at, just pick, because of the time, we can't go through every single witness account. We pick about 2 or 3 towns where this pogrom was visited and the people of Eastern region. Remember at that time, they're not called Biafrans. They thought they were Nigerians. They're in the same country. But where they were is a different part of the same country, but we're killed by their neighbors, their co-workers, and so on and so forth. So we're going to look at the towns like Katsina, Kanu, Kanji, and of course Kaduna. So I'm going to begin by saying to you the motives, quite briefly. Okay, so Mazi might be surprised to note that one of the witnesses, his name is Mazi, S-W-A-N Onoha. I'm not sure if they're related.
Maybe, who knows? That's a sweet coincidence. Yes, so just in case it's related, you have a relative who went to the north in the 60s. It might be part of their witness. Okay, so what I'm going to read to you is what they thought was the motivating factor. What in the crime scene or in a criminal court? I'm sure I'm talking after my league here. You know more about it than I do. The judge will ask you, what are the motives if you say he didn't? What are his motivations? What motivated him to do such a thing? So we can look at extenuating circumstances, for example. So the motivation, for example, so now what I'm going to tell you about. The motive for the pogrom is something which they have looked into. Okay, and they said that the question is the complete extermination of Easterners from the place in the north. In other words, how did they stop killing people in the north? Well, the answer to that is when there was no more Easterners to be killed. So they have succeeded. So that's one of the motives, to chase away and kill as many of Easterners as they possibly can in the north. Okay? Then, in connection, they had what they call the 7-point program or 7-point agenda of the organizers of the pogrom. Some people went down, they had several meetings, they organized this actual killing of the Easterners. It's Exhibit SWAN, that's the initials of Mr. Onoha, SWAN, so it's Exhibit SWAN 24, and it reads as follows. Number 1 motive, to kill off the Major General and the Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces. His name is Major General JTU Agi Rensi. They succeeded. Secondly, to kill off all the Yamri army officers. They killed as many as they can. Over 200 of them were killed. The third one is to subsequently purge the army of Yamri by killing the rest of the ranks and file. What happened? They called a bugle. Everybody came out, and those who were evil were chased out from the line and killed. The officers murdered. Okay? So this all happened on the 29th of July. Then the next reason for motivation was, with the aid of the Westerners, they said, in the army, to take complete control of the armed forces. They take over the complete control of the police force, the navy, and to purge off the Yamaris, as they call the Easterners, in all these forces. So they turned around the Nigerian military, which was multi-ethnic, multilingual, multi-religious, into a mono-ethnic. A bloc from the north, which is supposed to control the army, police, navy, air force, everything. So that is all part of their motivation. So we are feeding in Nigeria today part of this plan, this one's exhibition. This Mr. Onwa has the exhibition of the plan for killing our people.
Then the next one is to kill off and dispossess all the Anyamri domiciled in the northern region. They succeeded. Then the next was to use the armed forces to take complete control of the country's government. And that's what they did under Yakubu Gowon. So they took over the complete control, the running machinery of the government, because they killed Agi Urensi, they killed his host, Faji, who's a Yoruba guy in Ibadan, looking up who is his host. They killed both of them, and then they turned onto the soldiers and killed them. And as a result, they made the place ungovernable, in the sense that they controlled the Lagos, they controlled the north, and they had difficulty taking over the east. So the coup of 29 of July 1966 was partially successful. They changed the government, all right, but they have not got complete control of the eastern region. So because Sojuku was in the eastern region, because the coup did not affect that, it was a partial success. And that is why we had the war. Because Sojuku said, no, you can't cross this line and kill my people and get away with it. So part of the motivation also was they want a revenge. Okay, you can argue that the Saduna Sokoto, who is, as I said last time, the spiritual leader and also the governor of the northern region then, should not have been killed. The hotheads, the young military, the majors and the captains, led by Nzogbu in the north, Ifajin in the west, they succeeded in killing their spiritual leader, Saduna Sokoto, Hamadu Bello. And then Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, his prime minister, was also killed. So now, part of the motives there for killing all the people living in the north who have Eastern origin was to get rid of these people, and because having killed their own, they want to revenge on Dr. Azikiwe, they want to kill Dr. Abara, they want to kill Ojukwu, they want to kill Major Nzogbu. The interesting thing is killing Ojukwu, although Ojukwu became the governor of the Eastern region, he was actually in the north, helped to stop the coup in the north. The Commonwealth countries met in Lagos, and all the politicians were returning from Lagos to Kanu. Ojukwu welcomed them. So if they think it was an Igbo coup, he would have locked them all up. But he was the one who protected and looked after them. So yet, in their agenda or motives, they want to kill Ojukwu and also Major Nzogbu. Major Nzogbu died during the war, but they gave him a military honor burial. They took his body from Enugu, where he died, around the Nsukka sector, and buried him in Kaduna, as I understand. Okay, so then the next thing is to destroy the Port Harcourt, Enugu, University of Nigeria, and Nsukka, which they have succeeded, partly, because in the University of Nsukka, even up till now, the chemical department has not been activated, because they're fear that they may produce more chemicals during the war. And then finally, to kill off all the Yamri top civil servants, and all the wealthy Yamri, male and female, all the Yamri educated giants. It's like if you don't have educated giants, you kill other people's educated giants. Anyway, all grown up males and females in Yamri, and then to leave only sucklings and Yamri in their land. And in their radio Kaduna broadcast throughout the war is, yes, let us go and kill all the Yamris, rape their women, take their property, and leave them the just baby suckling. So that was all the motivation. So if you're in the middle of the court and the judge asks, what was their motive? These are the 7-point agenda which they lined up and was made known to us by the witness. He's called his 8th witness, Mr. S.A.W.A.N. Onoha. Okay, so that is a basis for which they operate on. Now, how did they go about the method? The method they went about was excessive madness in a way. They didn't just kill you, they made sure the way they went about it was so bad. And maybe some of us have to make sure you have strong stomach when we read most of the things they did to our people. Okay? How did they do it? First of all, there's a planned killing of our people. Like most genocide, they have those who sit down and plan it. So it was planned, mostly by their undergraduates at Ahmadu Bello University. They also had sometimes the help of the foreigner. British people, especially British lecturers, assisted them in planning this problem. They wanted revenge of the Sadwana. They wanted to make sure nobody on the east rose in the northern part to play any role whatsoever. So the killing was deliberate. It was directed. It was specific, targeting Easterners. Well, I keep calling them Easterners so that you know, at that time they were from eastern region of Nigeria. So they were targeting directed to them, specific to them. If you find a Yoruba person, you left them out. If you find an Igbo person, you killed them. It was unrelenting. Now, there were several waves of it. There was one in May. There was one in July. There was one in September. There was one in October. So it was waves after waves after waves. Was it spontaneous? Well, if you throw a pebble inside a pond, it will strain from the point where it landed and ripple outwards. Okay? But this one, it didn't start from one point and then ripple outwards. It was every city started at 7 o'clock on Saturday evening. It was planned. Okay, imagine a whole vast area of northern Nigeria, it's as big as Western Europe. Every single city, they all came out to start killing the Igbos 7 o'clock on a Saturday in one of the instances. So it was planned on that time at that hour. Then what else? It was coordinated. They even had buses which the native authority had. It's like the people who run northern Nigeria, they're called the native authority. Part of them run the police and so on. So they took the buses from these people, went into the villages and got people to come out from the villages, to come into town to kill the Igbos, or to kill the Yamris, or to kill the Easterners. They also imported, in some instances, people who are believed not to be necessarily Nigerians, but people from Chad and so on, specifically come to join in killing. They use all sorts of weapons. Bows and arrows, axes, clubs, stones. They use guns. They use any weapon they can get hold of. They burned people alive. They buried them in wells. They all did all sorts of things. So, and the most important thing that tell you that was not a spontaneous accident that happened, people were just rioting and killing anyhow. They were involved by they used the typed, let me repeat that, typed address of where the Easterners live. They had in their hand typed address of where these people live, so they would not miss their houses. Okay. When they went to Yoruba land, I mentioned before, they had to knock on your door and they mentioned Toro. And if you say Toro like an Igbo person compared to a Yoruba person, they know you are foreign and they killed you. Okay. Don't forget the people's faces were also scarred. You can also identify who is Yamli or who is from Eastern region and who isn't by the scar on their faces and so on and so forth. So if you're Yoruba, you normally have your scar, your tribal marking, I call it. And also in the northern, they have their own tribal marking. So you can see somebody, majority but did not have this tribal mark, so you can also identify who they are. Okay, so that is some of the methods which they used. Okay, so it's in actually killing. That's one. The second one I want to point your attention to is that in addition to all this planning, okay, they also had what I call deception. They say to you, if a group of Easterners heard, there's going to be a killing from Friday onwards, so they start packing their bags. So the next thing you come on the radio and say, oh no, you heard a rumor that there was going to be killing. Actually, there isn't. Don't worry about it. We will protect you. Honestly, we will. Don't worry about it. It's all false.